I haven't heard too much about it this time. Usually when people usually do that around this time, usually there's like a bunch of signs, or they usually come into the college, or they'll like go down to the place over here and usually like have a big billboard and have everyone talk on, have like a open radio, so if people couldn't make it, they would turn on their radio and the transmitter would transmit it out, and they would tell us about their beliefs and stuff. Like one year, I think it was Steve Daines and all of them come down and did that for us, and he was really informational about it. And then I think he also somebody came over to the college before and talked to us about it too, and how it was important and all that for the votes, and everyone's vote matters. So that's why they always come out and try to help us, and talk to us and let us know what they're standing for and all that. They usually like have buttons or like have signs and stuff, but I haven't seen any lately right now. And and that's kind of difficult to know, because I like to know if I'm going to go vote this time. I want to make sure I know who I'm voting for, and it's kind of crazy that I don't know who I'm voting for. Like, just like when everyone around here is voting for a councilman right now, we know who's running, and we all see the signs, and they even stand out there and promote themselves, and they'll even stop and they'll tell you, this is why I'm running. To be honest, it's more or less like a sovereign nation kind of thing, like we're sovereign but not sovereign. And that's what I believe why most of us don't really try to look at as a state thing so important to us, is because we live on a reservation where it's a whole different thing, and that's what I noticed about it. I mean, I don't mind helping out the state and stuff because I like to know what they're about too, but most of the time it's really helpful when you actually vote for somebody like that, especially out of the reservation like that. It's more or less of what they could do to help natives off the reservation too, to help succeed off the reservation too. Because I know that there was a couple of them that was running saying, like they were willing to come help natives, out of stuff, and that's what kind of got my attention for a little bit. I can't remember who it was, but, and that's what grabs my attention, because when it comes down to it, when people are on the reservation, they tend to only care for the community or what's good for the community, just like how Havre is with outsiders and stuff, how during certain times they're more open, and then there's certain times when it's not like a tourist attraction or anything, and you could tell like a difference between a switch, So that's the way I kind of looked at it, of why, voting is different from one place to another.
Yeah.
And that's what I see, because like even moving off the reservation and moving to one big city, I see like all these people all over the news and all over actually promoting themselves all over, even over local television. To be honest, I feel like if we would be able to work more with more outside too for more, I feel like we could become even more of our own and not have to, worry about where we're going to get funding most of the time, And I always felt like that would help, is if we could actually start communicating more with like Havre or this place or that place.
I knew there is an election going on right now, just because of like the town Havre. Like you said, they have a lot of signs up, posted around, and I don't really know any of the candidates, though I haven't heard their story or what they have to offer to our state, but that's pretty much it.
I've seen Snapchats of people and ballots, or I'm filling out ballots, but like getting it in the mail or whatever. And all I know is like that, is it that Roe versus Wade things on there? Yeah, that's all I know. I don't really know candidates. I don't pay attention to government. I really don't know. I just like talk to my cousin who's like involved in the governmental stuff. She'll tell me about like what's the best choice for me to vote. So I guess it's like outside pressure. They're like, don't vote for this person. I'm like, all right.
I feel more engaged with tribal elections just because they
we know of them, I guess.
Yeah, we know them, and they also tell us what they're going to be about if they get elected and stuff, and they give us their story basically, So
I focus more on their work ethic. So like seeing them in action, because I have seen a couple of councilmen in action and I'm not like a fan, or I am a fan. That's just how I am.
I think they'd I would really like if they'd come campaign out at the high school and stuff, like mainly target seniors and stuff. I feel like it's like a lot of pressure to start voting right away when you turn 18. So if they come and share their story with like the high schoolers, maybe and with the whole community, like in a gym or something, just tell us what you're running for and what you're gonna like be behind. So
If they're gonna help Native communities in any way.
I feel like they only prioritize bigger Native communities. I always see them going out to like, I guess the Crow Nation and stuff, just because they're huge, but they never come over here to the smaller communities. It's like we matter too. We're here.
Tiny but mighty.
Yeah. Why do you think people here, like students or young people, feel like the state matters less? Or do you think that people feel that way? You know, that they don't really need to participate, or?
I feel like they don't have a good understanding of how the government runs. I feel like they think that the state doesn't affect them just because we're on the reservation. Yeah. But there's many different ways that it still affects us, and that's why we should still get out and vote. But it all comes down to they don't come out here and campaign, so they don't even know who's running. They're not going to vote for somebody who they don't know.
Personally, I could say I'm not engaged. I'm not a news watcher anymore, so I don't really even know what's going on with it. And I also feel that's the same with our students. I don't feel like they are, and I'm sure they don't know, and they don't really know. So honestly, I asked my brother, who is a tribal council member, I'm like, okay, who do I need to vote for? Because, he works with all of them and knows who we need and, what they want and how it'll help us here on the res. So I rely on him to tell me who to vote for.
I think when you're talking about tribal communities, like, we're lucky that we're able to vote here in Stonechild, and the ladies should be, when they're here, it's listed, and that's for Choteau County, and then the Hill County votes up at the Wellness Center? Yeah, or somewhere in that area. So we're lucky that we have these satellite offices, but I know on the bigger tribal reservations, they have to drive an hour to vote. And I know there was this big conflict with satellite places so that natives can vote more, and I almost felt like they made it harder to access voting, and so there was this whole debacle over voting and if it was right or fair by a lot of groups or people. And so, I don't understand why we couldn't make it easier for us to vote. Different tribal communities, because if you look at Northern Cheyenne and Crow, they're so isolated. Hayes, Hart Butte, there's not a lot of places for them to go. And I was trying to remember, but the last time someone came to Rocky Boy would have been when Bullock was running, and they hosted that at the rodeo grounds, and that was the last time we had anyone show interest for our community.
We had one lady come, and I cannot remember her name, but she came here and walked around, and we had a Monday drum that day. So
Hillary? What was Williams? But she drove, yeah, there you go.
Yep.
She drove all the way around Montana.
She came, and I thought that was, when you look at being aware, we, especially our students, we're adults, we should be able to, find out, go off their background, what they want, what are their hopes, what are they going to do for us. But, our students they're not so into it, imagine being that age. So it's nice to have people that are willing to come out and tell us their platform in person. To me, that's more personable than, a piece of mail you're going to get or a text to,
A lot of times, too, are they really going to represent what even the youth believe, that is something that it's so disconnected, they don't really talk with them, not at them, there's a big difference. Just what's your concerns, I've never, not once. And when I taught in the education department, I said, you guys are teachers, make sure you look at the trends and who supports education, where's the funding going to when it comes through. Pay attention to that, and pay attention how many people have actually came out here, what party, what are they talking about, how do they help your job. And so But that was that big push because they needed teachers in the smaller rural areas, and so that's it was a discussion within the class, and it was really hard, don't vote for this person, don't vote for that person. I just said, look into it, like who's supporting you and what the jobs you'll take here soon. That's a big deal, think about it. The biggest turn that I saw that young people voted was when Obama came through. Like that was a long time ago. So, and after that, like nobody was really talking, and so, like, honestly, he was younger. Like, I honestly, like, this is gonna sound bad, but they don't look, sound, or talk like kids. They're older. That's what I mean. Do they talk with them or at them? Do you not just hear?
I think the face too. I think the face had a lot to do with it. I mean, you're hearing about, we're going to have our first, African American president, and the fact that, I mean, he went to a tribe, and of course, you hear that here, and like that's what they're hearing. It's like, it's getting his name out because at least he showed, he somewhat showed he cared.
Yeah.
He took the time to actually come to a tribe, and
Right? Like, we don't get a lot of that. We really don't.
The other thing I was thinking too is like, so when we have this is something they've just done recently and it's optional, but when they're doing the tribal council elections, like they'll host like a community forum, and so you have all these supposed to be non-biased questions. That would be nice if they did, those same things, so then people can hear, and you make it virtual too, for those that can't make it, but then you could actually see them, video person, whatever, and hear what they, versus just reading what they say they're going to do. I think it's a combination of what you said, but I also think it's, I don't think they realize, like we live here, and so we know the decisions that, our tribal council make are going to affect each and every one of us. And, looking at the bigger picture, we know the state does too, but the understanding is, we just know here. We don't know how, who makes it in state office, how, when they represent us at the, the Congress part of it, and, the bigger side for funding and everything, they don't understand how that connects, those dots connect. So I think it's both.
One of the biggest things, like when you plan something, anything, you want the people that are important to be at the table. Does that make sense? And so we are never offered a seat at the table. Like we are always like, oh, we're having, like there's always pushback. You look at our electric company, you look at all these services that we need outside, none of us sit on a board. None of us are welcome that we like, hey, why don't you vote for your seat from your community to be represented at our Hill County Electric, or I'm not even sure what it's called, but our telephone electric, like there's a water line coming through. Like, we've heard a lot of negativity associated with that because it'll run past. And so I guess that's what I mean, where there's a lot of relationships that are trying to be built, but at the same time it's like, hey, we deserve to be here, let us in. And then, there's some good people that say, heck yeah, come in, but at the same time, it's like,
it needs to be the people like them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're, they're higher up, so it's people like that should think about things like that.